Good morning. Good morning, honorable members, our guests, and in the Office of the Auditor-General. We are
Recording in progress.
We are going now to start our meeting. We're receiving a presentation from the Auditor-General with an understanding that, and I hope members are aware, that we are now preparing for our BRRR report, which is then in order and procedural, that will then be briefed by the Office of the Auditor-General. I think I have also seen the Deputy Minister. No, whether it was a mistake from my side. If she is in, we are then welcoming her, but with an understanding that this is a meeting between the Portfolio Committee and the Office of the Auditor-General. I am not going to waste time. I will then allow you, Mr. Sakasa, to take us through the roll call. Over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and good morning to the committee and our guests. Chair, today we have the following members. We've got yourself, Chair, Honorable Dunjwa, Honorable Mark Kubele, Honorable Volmarans, Honorable Ndabe, Honorable Nonsele, Honorable Bakrem, Honorable Kado, Honorable Ligoff, Honorable Mkondo. We also joined by a visiting member, Honorable Jacobs, Chair. We received an apology from Honorable Zuma, who said she's on a flight to Cape Town, but she will join in later, Chair. Chair, from the support staff, we've got myself, we've got Poshi Andabeni, Tebuho Mukwena, we've got Sibongiseni Ngobo, and from PMG, I think we also have Ms. Mdakane. That's all from myself, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. So, thank you, Mr. Sakasa. I saw some members, staff of the department, and with the understanding that, and welcome, Honorable Jacobs, with the understanding that they are here just to listen. I will appreciate if they can quickly introduce themselves, just quick, so that we then hand over to the Auditor-General. In fact, before the Auditor-General, if there are any guests, they also introduce themselves. I will hand over to whoever. I see there's somebody from Compensation Fund. Thank you. Why are they quiet, Mr. Wabab?
Chairperson, good morning. This is Marsha Broncos, COO for the department. Yes, as you correctly said, we are silent observers this morning, but allow me to introduce, if you will allow me to summarize the members, or would you want me to name them by name, Chairperson, the attendees?
Quickly, yeah, okay, quickly summarize them.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, the chair of our audit committee is in the meeting. I've seen his name in the attendees. Mr. Situkali Neokitsimbi, he is here. Then also the acting compensation commissioner, as is the UIF commissioner, is here. All the DDGs from the department are present. There are a number of chief directors from both the compensation fund and the UIF present. The CEO for SEE is present in the meeting, as is the acting CEO for Productivity South Africa. And I have seen some colleagues from the CCMA present in the meeting as well. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ma'am. Are there any guests which are coming outside the department, outside the office of the AG, and outside Parliament? Can they quickly introduce themselves?
Yes, Chair, there are names that I don't know. Sometimes I'm not even sure whether they are from the department or the AG, because it's just names that I cannot recognize. Like Huma, Trosi, etc. Chair, I don't know.
Good morning, Chairperson. Cameron Murajan, Director CCMA. I'm joining using a phone. I just landed from the airport at Quebec. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairperson, this is Lisa Seftel from NEDLAC, and I'm joined here this morning by the CFO, Farhan Samsudin, the Executive Manager, Nubuntu Sibisi, the Senior Manager for Corporate Services, Moponi Molete, and by the Manager in my office, Nozipho Ngema. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you. Who is Shamsuddin?
Chairperson, that is the CFO of NEDLAC.
Oh, okay. No, that is fine. We'll check the others. And who's NANCYR? NANCYR. Who's that person? Who's NA?
Good afternoon, honorable members. I'm Nancy Radio AGSA. Thank you, Chairperson. Nancy Radio from Auditor-General.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. It's the strange name. No, that's fine. We will then hand over to the leader of the delegation from the Office of the Auditor-General to take us through first his or her delegation, and then after that, straight to the presentation. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Chair, and good morning to honorable members, officials of the department, and officials of the entities. I am Michelle Margaman. I'm the Deputy Business Unit Leader at the Office of the Auditor-General. I am joined with me by Bulelwa Sekoia, as well as Ro Chosi. Ro Chosi is responsible for the information systems audit at the department. And Bulelwa is responsible for the labor portfolio for the Department of Labor, as well as the CCMA and SCE. I also have Ms. Nana Shai. She's responsible for the UIF audit. I have Bosi Maseko. He's responsible for the compensation fund audit. And that's a delegation that I'm with, including Nancy, who just introduced herself. Chair, we brought to you a presentation and we'll be taking you through it. Bulelwa will take you through it. But the presentation encompasses the department, the SCE, the CCMA, as well as NEDLAC. We have not included the compensation fund or the UIF in the presentation for the 2021-22. We have finalized the audit, but we do note that they have not tabled. Therefore, we have not included those in the presentation. We also have not received the 2022-23 financial statements for the compensation fund and the UIF. So you won't see those ones coming through in the presentation as well. Let me hand over to Bulelwa to take us through the audit outcomes and some of the observations that we had during the audit. And then I'll hand back over to you. Bulelwa, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Michelle, and good morning, Honorable Chair, honorable members. officials of the auditees in the portfolio of employment and labor, all the guests, all protocol observed. I'm not sure the host can just indicate if I'm able to share.
If I may answer, yes, I've made Ms. Square the co-host, so she should be able to share, Chair, through you, Chair.
Thank you very much. As Michelle has indicated, I'll be taking you through the audit outcomes of the portfolio for the 2022-23 financial year. But before I do that, I will just quickly touch on our mission and vision, as well as the accountability ecosystem. Our mission and vision have remained the same. We exist to strengthen our country's democracy by enabling oversight, accountability, as well as governance in the public sector. And we do all of this through the audit work that we do. And our vision is to be recognized by all our stakeholders as a relevant supreme audit institution that enhances public sector accountability. And in line with this mission and vision that are centered around public sector accountability, when we met with the committee in the prior year, we introduced this accountability ecosystem. So this is just a reminder of that ecosystem, which is a network of all the stakeholders who either by virtue of having a mandate or a responsibility to drive public sector accountability. So this remains key as we go forward, because for us to see any change in the outcomes that I'll be presenting to you this morning, we need all these stakeholders, all these role players in the accountability ecosystem to do their part. And by that, we mean from the lowest level official up to the highest oversight structure. And not just do their part, but we need everybody to do their part for impact. And only then we'll be able to see the change that we wish to see. For the portfolio in particular, the portfolio of employment and labor, we did our own analysis to try and identify the key stakeholders in the ecosystem of the portfolio that we believe that if we influence as a start, we can be able to see a change in the culture within our auditees in the portfolio. At implementation level, we have the key units that are responsible for the implementation of controls. Those are your finance unit, the people who are responsible for performance information. For labor, the department in particular, we are also aiming to influence the information and communication technology unit, which is the ICT unit. As you see, they are responsible for a system that doesn't only affect the department, but it also affects the functioning of the funds. So they are key to this change that we want to see. We also have the loss control committee for the department in particular, because we have been having concerns when it comes to consequence management, which is linked to the investigations that that committee is responsible for driving and ensuring that they are being done and actions are taken. And lastly, on implementation, we are aiming to influence the inspections and enforcement services unit, which is the inspectorate division of the department, because they are key as well, as the work that they do does not only impact the department, but it also feeds into what the CF and the UIF are doing on the ground. Then at accountability level, we are aiming to influence the director of the CCMA, the CEO of the SEE, as well as the commissioners of the funds, together with the DG. So these are the people that we are hoping they will drive the accountability on the ground. At oversight level, we have the DG together with the heads of these different institutions, as well as all the oversight structures, your audit committees up to the portfolio committee. So Chair, as I mentioned, these are the key stakeholders that we believe as a start, if we influence them, the change will be seen better in terms of auditees that are within the portfolio. I will then take you straight to the audit outcomes of the portfolio, starting with the overall picture that we have for the current year. When it comes to the overall audit outcomes, we are seeing a slight regression for the portfolio. with the supported employment enterprises, which I'll be referring to as SEE going forward, we are seeing it regressing from a qualified opinion, which they've been receiving over the years, to an adverse opinion. That is the main reason why the portfolio has regressed slightly. Again, for the first 2 years in the administration term, the two entities, UIF and CF, were able to produce financial statements and submit them within the legislated deadlines. But what we are seeing now is that since last year, they are not able to produce and submit those financial statements within the legislated time. So that is as well is a slight regression in terms of how the portfolio is performing. On the positive share, we are seeing CCMA being able to sustain a clean audit, which they first achieved in the prior year, and we commend the entity for that. And we have the Department of Employment and Labor and NEDLEC still struggling to move from the category of unqualified with findings. Their findings are mainly on compliance in the current year. And that is a repeat. Even in the previous years, they had some issues when it comes to the compliance. I will then try to look at the different areas that affected those audit outcomes that I've just presented now. As Michelle has mentioned, this presentation will be excluding CF and UIF as we do not have the financial statements. Starting with the performance information, which when we look at it, we look at both planning and reporting. For the portfolio overall, there were no material findings that were reported in the audit reports of all the auditees, that is the department, the CMA, NEDLEC, and SEE. However, during the audit, we did identify material findings for CCMA and NEDLEC, but these were successfully corrected by management. Hence, we did not have any issues reported in the audit report. Just to touch on the nature of the issues that we identified, they were more on reporting, that is the reliability of the reported achievements. We had instances where the listings could not support what was being reported in the APR. We also had instances where the evidence that is being used to measure performance does not support the objective of the indicator itself. Looking at the overall achievement of the targets by the 4 auditees, we are seeing mainly a positive picture because they were all able to achieve majority of the indicators. We still though urge the auditees to put more effort into ensuring that they achieve all the targets to align with the outcomes that we saw in the previous slide, which were positive. We've highlighted a few targets that were not achieved by the different auditees. So the auditees might also have to relook at some of the indicators just to make sure that what they are planning is within the control of the department. Because you notice that some of these indicators are not being achieved because they are outside the control of the auditees. Because if this is not addressed, then the portfolio as a whole will struggle to meet its 5-year strategic goals. In addition to the work that you did on the submitted annual performance report, Chair, we also looked from the department side, we also looked at the initiatives that are linked to employment in which the department participated in the 2022-23 financial year. The work was in twofold. The one part of it was based on the Employment Services of South Africa system, which I will be referring to as the AGSA system going forward. So what we did when it comes to the AGSA system, we did 2 analyses. We first compared what is being reported by the department in the APR against the database that is sitting on the system. We further then analyzed that database to understand the usage of the system, who's using the system, and the validity of the numbers that are being captured on the system. The key message that we are bringing forward this morning is that we have noted that this system has a lot of potential and citizens can greatly benefit from it if it is used properly and with a few enhancements into the system. And another thing we've identified is that there are a few opportunities that the department can explore when it comes to working with other role players such as your higher education and training sector in terms of bridging the gap, number one, between the skills that are required by the market and what the education and training sector is focusing on. And secondly, there's an opportunity for the department to work with other role players. Network can also assist in this instance in terms of ensuring that the system is actually being used by the employers, both in the public and the private sector, because we have noted that the number of job opportunities that are being registered in the system compared to the work seekers, the difference is very big. And again, the same number of job opportunities that are being registered in the system, not all of them are being filled by these registered work seekers, which then indicates the skills gap between the people who are looking for the jobs and what the market is looking for. On the other hand, we also looked at the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program. In terms of this program, the department's role was just to appoint 250 interns. They were given an allocation of 20 million to do this. The department was able to achieve 92% of that target, which is a high percentage. While we note that in nature, this intervention is short-term, but again, there's an opportunity because now these interns have been trained in the Department of Employment and Labor space. They can be absorbed again in the system permanently should there be permanent positions in the labor centers, because that's where they were placed. And lastly, before I move to the second part of what affected the audit outcomes, we also had a look at the ICT environment of the department in particular. Our review was in twofold, similar to the prior year. We looked at the general controls, the results of which you will see on the right side of the presentation. We also looked at the contracts, so we performed a contract review of the ICT-related contracts. Then when it comes in to the results, in both areas, we did identify repeat findings. The general control findings were in the areas of IT governance, program change management, user account management, as well as service continuity. And all these findings, as I've indicated, are repeat findings. So there seems to be very slow response by management in terms of addressing these, which is a concern. When it comes to the contract review, Chair, we are providing you with an update. You'll recall that last year we did a presentation on the IT project that the department is engaging in, which affects the two funds, compensation fund and the UIF. We have now done a further review to cover the 2023 financial year. We again identified some non-compliances in terms of this contract. And at the time of us concluding the audit, the system was still not live, so meaning the project was still continuing beyond the timelines that were initially set. And what came with these projects is that, and these non-compliances that we've been identifying and how the project itself is being managed, leading to these delays that we are seeing. There has been some financial losses that have been incurred by the department and the funds. And this relates to the licenses that they've been paying for, and those were not fully utilized over the years. Some are not utilized at all, and some are no longer needed by the department and the entities. So what these losses have done now, they've even led to us issuing a material irregularity notification to the DG. So with that new MI now, the total MIs that have been issued for the portfolio are 3 in total. The labor one being the one relating to the payments for unused or underutilized software licenses. We issued this MI on the 6th of September. We are still waiting for the DG's response in relation to this. Then we have 2 other MIs that we issued in 2021, which are the same as the MIs that were reported to you about in the prior year. they both relate to the compensation fund. One of them was resolved, and we're happy to report that an amount of 12.8 million was recovered. And the other MI relating to the interest that was charged for late payments is still in progress, and the entity is now engaging in a legal process in trying to recover the funds. It is a concern that is taking a bit of time to resolve these MIs, Honorable Chair, because these extended periods that are being taken to address everything mean that the consequence management is delayed. So meaning the people who led to these losses and these non-compliances are not being held accountable at the moment. So we do urge and plead with the Minister to monitor the progress and support the accounting officer or authority where there's a need in order to address these MIs on time. What I'd also like to highlight is the key actions that are expected now in terms of the auditors. I will also touch on what the committee can do to assist in the process. So with the two MIs, which is the Departments 1 as well as the CF that is in progress, the auditors are required to firstly stop the losses from continuing. Secondly, investigate these instances to identify the people who are responsible for this, and consequence management should be implemented. And lastly, we expect to see an improvement in terms of controls that have been put in place to give assurance that these instances will not occur in the future. We did provide a detailed presentation on the responsibilities of the committee last year when it comes to MIs, but just a reminder, Honorable Chair, is that from the committee side, you play a monitoring role. So yours is to monitor the progress and call the accounting officer or authority to account in terms of the actions that are taken and the outcomes thereof. I will then just touch on the financial management side then of the issues that affected the audit outcomes that we saw for the portfolio at the beginning of the presentation. In this area that is financial management, the key focus is on the key control drivers that affect financial reporting. In the area of proper record keeping as well as daily and monthly controls, the portfolio is doing fairly well because it's only SEE that has issues in that area. When it comes to the in-year and year-end reporting as well as compliance monitoring, it's the opposite though, because we're seeing that it's only CCMA that did not have material findings. So the portfolio needs to really work on these two areas in order to improve the audit outcomes. So all these deficiencies that we've highlighted here, they have led to us identifying significant errors in the financial statements of the department, NEDLAC, and SEE. While the department and NEDLAC were able to correct all the issues that we identified and were material, SEE could not correct all of them, leading to the adverse audit opinion. And these material errors that were uncorrected for SEE were in the areas of inventories, cost of sales, receivables, payables, operating expenses, contingencies, as well as property, plant, and equipment. All these are also repeat qualification areas except for contingencies. What is mainly causing these errors, Chair? The main root causes were that there were instances where the issues that we reported in the previous year were not corrected by the entity. Those affected inventories, cost of sales, receivables, and payables. So because those were not addressed when they were raised in the previous year, they were then again affecting the current year financial statement. We also had instances of incorrect classification or accounting for items that affected the operating expenses and contingencies. Then for property, plant, and equipment, we had instances where there were assets that were identified in the entity's premises, but they were not recorded in the accounting records of the entity. Therefore, the amount that was sitting in the financial statements was incomplete. The last part I'll be looking at then, Chair, is the compliance with legislation when it comes to the audit outcomes. As I've indicated, CCMA is the only entity that did not have material findings, while the department, NEDLAC, and SEE had material findings, and the most common areas were in the quality of financial statements, which I have explained in detail in the previous slide. And the last two that I'll be now explaining further is the prevention of irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure, as well as consequence management, which affected the department and SEE. Just before I take you through that, Chair, I'd just like to highlight the key change that affects the disclosure of the irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. This is brought about by the instruction note that was issued by the National Treasury early this year. The key takeaway from this slide, Chair, is that the disclosure that we are used to in the financial statement has slightly changed, in that the opening balance, which are the historical balances, as well as the movements, are now not disclosed in the financial statements, that they are still disclosed in the annual report. And the key thing that the committee should note, and the other oversight structures now, is that for them to be able to exercise their oversight responsibility, they now need to review the annual report in detail when it comes to this area, because that's where most of the information is sitting. And from our side as well, we will continue to review the annual report just to ensure that what is disclosed there is accurate and complete. Moving on then to the irregular expenditure as well as fruitless and wasteful expenditure for the portfolio as disclosed in the annual financial statements. So this one relates to the current year's irregular expenditure, not the one that is disclosed in the annual report. We are noticing a significant increase when it comes to the irregular expenditure for the portfolio as a whole, but the key contributor there is the expenditure that is incurred by the department. And about 99% of that irregular expenditure relates to the ICT contracts that we've just discussed. So this shows the impact of the control deficiencies that we are identifying in the ICT space. The other auditees, while they have incurred irregular expenditure, but in total the contribution is less than 500,000. So majority of it does relate to the department. When it comes to fruitless and expenditure, while we are noting a slight decrease from 27 million in the prior year to the current year balance of 19 million, we are still concerned because those amounts are still high, and it still shows that the portfolio still continues not to prevent the fruitless and wasteful expenditure as required by the PFMA. And again, the top contributor in this area is the department, and the expenditure mainly relates to ICT payments that were made for services that were not received. SEE contributed about 1.2 million, which is the second highest contribution in the portfolio, and majority of that relates to inventory losses and theft. And this is also a repeat issue as you do.
Bulelo, we lost you. Can you hear us? Bulelo? Jay, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Michelle, but as you are saying, I think we have lost the presenter.
Okay, Bulelo is just having difficulties. So what I'm going to do, Chair, if I can have the rights to share the presentation, I'll share it from my side, and she'll use my computer to finish the presentation. Apologies for that.
The system has kicked the chair out also.
As well. Okay,
Yes.
so maybe it's a
I've given you, Michelle, the rights. I've given Michelle the rights now. She can.
Okay, let me sort it out, and then we'll be back on with the committee. Thanks. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are. I am from my
You're
side.
able? All right, we will continue. Then I'll just hand over my laptop to Bulelwa to continue.
Thank you, Michelle, and my sincere apologies, Honorable Chair and members. I don't know what just happened there. I will just continue from where I left off, which was on the fruitless and wasteful expenditure. So as I was indicating then, again, on fruitless and wasteful expenditure, the main contributor is the department, with the majority of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure relating to the IT services again. Then on SEE, we have about 1.2 million losses that were incurred, and this relates to the loss of inventory. And lastly, on consequence management, again, now these are the closing balances that you'll only find in the annual report, in line with the change that I've just highlighted as brought about by the Treasury instruction note. These balances, as you can see, have remained very high for the all 4 years that we are presenting for the portfolio, which just then indicates that there seems to be tolerance for transgressions when it comes to irregular expenditure within the portfolio. But of concern when it comes to consequence management is that 99% of the balance that was reported by the portfolio in the previous year, that is the balance of 104 million, 99% of that has not been dealt with. And the top contributors when it comes to that 99% is the department again, as well as SEE. And the main reason for this is that there are investigations that are taking long to finalize. Some of the investigations as well have not been started. And until such time that these two entities actually focus more on preventing these instances, only then we'll be able to see a significant change, because at the moment, the department has a huge number of instances of irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure to investigate. So these investigations are then taking time to be finalized. Chair, I will now just, with the picture that I've just presented now, I will just be reflecting now on the recommendations that we made for the portfolio in the previous year, as well as the implementation of these recommendations. And lastly, I will then touch on our recommendations that we are trying to bring forth in the current year. So last year we had 4 recommendations. We recommended follow-ups when it comes to the submission of the financial statements by the UIF and the CF. We also recommended follow-ups when it comes to consequence management, as well as the actions that are being taken to address the material irregularities that are reported for the portfolio. We also recommended that there should be regular follow-ups in terms of the progress on the implementation of the action plans by the auditors within the portfolio. While we are noting that these follow-ups have been happening by different stakeholders and oversight structures, your audit committees are following up, the committee itself is following up. We are seeing a stagnation, though, when it comes to the implementation by the auditors themselves. For example, UIF has still not submitted the financial statements for the 2022-23, as well as CF. We are also still seeing instances where the action plans do not identify the adequate or correct root causes And as such, the actions that are being put in place are not addressing those issues, which is why we are continuing to report on repeat findings, as I've just done now. We are then of the view that there's still a need for the minister to actively engage in this process of monitoring these action plans, and that this monitoring should also include or involve providing support to these auditees as well as feedback in order to facilitate the successful implementation or execution of these action plans. It is also, again, critical then for the committee itself to evaluate the measures that have been put in place by these auditees when it comes to how they are planning to address these issues in a way that they don't recur in the future. These are the recommendations that we are bringing this year, Chair, to the auditees themselves. There is a need for consequence management when it comes to poor performance. There's a need for them to fast track or to prioritize the investigations that need to be done when it comes to the instances of irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure, as well as the material irregularities that are being reported. And lastly, there's a need for the recommendations that are being put forward by the investigation reports, because there are instances where there'll be recommendations, but those are taking time to be implemented. So the auditees need to focus in those 3 areas. For the executive authority, we are re-emphasizing that there needs to be constant follow-up on the implementation of consequence management, as well as the actions that are being taken when it comes to the material irregularities that we've reported now for the department, as well as the outstanding one on the compensation fund. There also needs to be monitoring of the commitments that are being made by the 2 funds when it comes to the submission of reliable annual financial statements for the current year and for the upcoming years as well. And lastly, we are urging the minister to obtain confirmation that when it comes to the performance agreements of the managers, those agreements also include the key responsibilities when it comes to improving the internal controls. And for the committee, Chair, we are recommending that there must be follow-up on the progress that is being made by the portfolio in implementing these action plans and investigating the instances of irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure so that the consequence management is implemented. And lastly, there needs to be continuous follow-up when it comes to CF and UIF in terms of the actions that they are taking to ensure that they do submit the financial statements for audit. In closing, Chair, I will just provide now an overall summary of the audit outcomes of Productivity SA. We're looking at the audit outcomes for 3 years. So in the 3 years, the audit outcomes have remained the same as unqualified, with findings on compliance. This covers then the year 2020-21 up to the current year, which is 2022-23. And the areas that they are struggling the most with is the quality of the financial statements, where we identified material errors in the disclosure note relating to prior period error, as well as the cash flow statements. They also had a non-compliance that relates to the prevention of irregular expenditure. That will then, Chair, bring me to the end of my presentation. I will hand over back to Michelle, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bulelwa, and thank you, honorable members, for your time. Maybe in summary is that in terms of the portfolio, we are still seeing that the SEE is still struggling with the preparation of financial statements, accurate financial statements. In terms of the department, we are seeing that there just needs to be attention paid on the ICT contracts and the managing of those, as well as the consequence following up on transgressions that resulted in irregular expenditure and fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And there we are saying that consequence management needs to be taken so that it stops the culture of some of the transgressions that we are seeing. Thank you, Chair. Can I hand back over to you for your questions and comments? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. There's something that I want to apologize to members for sincerely. I was supposed to request Mr. Sakaza to put the agenda, but after this, after our two items in our agenda is the presentation by the Auditor-General, which has been done, and then we are going to receive a presentation from the Internal Audit Committee of the Department of Employment and Labor. My sincere apology that I didn't put that up. I would then request as members would always like all presentations to be made and then come up with questions. I don't know if then that is still the same. If then that is still the same, I will then request the person who's going to make a presentation on behalf of the audit committee. I was advised by the parliamentary liaison officer, Mr. Wababa, that is going to be the chair of the board of the internal audit committee Are we comfortable with that approach, that we receive that and then we ask questions after that? Can I get an indication from members? Am I audible?
We are comfortable, Chair. It's Mkonto.
Thank you, Honorable Mkonto. The chair of the audit committee of the internal committee of the department. We will.
Thanks very much, Chair. Let me share my screen. Are we able to see my presentation?
No, it's only you that were able to see. Can you assist Zolan?
Yes, Chair, I've given him the rights. He should be able to.
Are you able to see it?
Yes, we are.
So thanks again for the opportunity that we are given by yourself, Chair, and your fellow honorable members. We are reflecting on the financial year 2023, and our reflection is really built onto what the AG has presented, and therefore there is likely to be commonalities, there's likely to be additions. But before I get to it, can I take the opportunity to say I am here with my fellow audit committee members, Ms. Jabulile Nkosi, Ms. Jane Masite, Mr. Luyanda Manguku. So all four of us constitute the audit committee of DEL. As far as the agenda for the brief presentation is concerned, these are the items. If you look closely, the common thread that informs the agenda is the combined assurance model or framework of the department. We talk about enterprise risk management, we talk about internal audit, and then we talk about the first line of defense. Both the SEE and the department, and of course, we reflect on the AG and its findings. So if we start with the SEE, perhaps two observations from our side as the audit committee. is that perhaps there is a skills and competencies weakness within SEE. And that shows up in the form of financials that are not coming through on time and with the level of accuracy you would expect. Also, those skills and competencies talk to the uniqueness of the entity. That entity has a manufacturing component within it. We believe the skills and competencies are not where they should be. And of course, the notion as per best practice, the notion that structure follows strategy. We believe in the context of the SEE, that structure is far too lean to be able to support the delivery of the strategy. And of course, funding is constrained, something that post the financial year 2023 is compounded by the communication that came from the National Treasury recently, which talks to austerity measures. With that situation, there are a few risks that are going to play out. One of those risks is the implementation rate of the recommendations by the AG, and Bulelwa has already alluded to those. How soon do you start to formulate that action plan? With how much rigor do you implement the action plan? Does it happen well ahead of the next statutory audit? That is one risk, Chair and honorable members, which is at play when you have a lean structure. The organizational performance will inevitably suffer if you do not have adequate resources. Non-compliance, particularly in relation to the annual financial statements, will come to play. There's some noise. There's some noise, Chair. The other risk, of course, related is the integrity of reporting. And we believe, we may be wrong, we believe, Chair, that if we do not place sufficient emphasis on guarding against the integrity of reporting, that creates fertile ground for fraud and corruption. We're not saying there's fraud and corruption at play, but the integrity of reporting, if you look across the road, corporate collapses, organizational scandals, your Steinhoff, for instance, all of them, the common thread is integrity of reporting. As such, from a preventative point of view, that risk needs to be closely guarded. It's our humble view as the audit committee.
Last week, it was 21,000. 21,000.
Somebody's competing with me.
Sorry, sir. Can somebody phone the deputy minister and the other person that was disturbing? They must refrain. They must mute. If they continue to do what they've done, we'll take them off the platform. Thank you. Sorry, sir.
Thanks,
Chair. Apologies, Chairperson.
Thanks. So, in conclusion on the SEE, we believe that there is also a business continuity management risk at play. And that risk is particularly in relation to the revenue stream of the SEE. And we ask from a distance. Coincidentally, the AG spoke about DHET. We are asking about the Department of Social Development. We are asking about the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. Should there not be a conversation amongst these parties? And if there is that conversation sufficiently impactful, given that SEE is primarily about disabilities? And therefore, how could it be when there are sister departments that are supposed to comprehend disabilities perhaps better than anybody? And that might be a naive statement, Chair. When there are those departments, how could it be that the SEE struggles to generate sufficient revenue that will make it more impactful? Disabilities are a strategic imperative in this country. Our understanding as the Audit Committee. That wraps up the SEE from our perspective, Chair. Or perhaps before we wrap it up, this is a diagrammatic depiction of what I've been talking about in relation to strategy. That needs to be, when you have strategy there, then you've got to have a structure that supports that strategy. In the context of the SEE, they've got a vision, they've got a mission, they've got the objectives, they've got a strategy. And fortunately, the CEO recently started. We believe it is when there is a change of guard that an opportunity to look closer at the strategy, to refresh the strategy, to refine it occurs. With that having taken place, the structure constitutes a red flag, Chair. And unless that is attended to, then performance is going to suffer. This picture is in line with best practice. We just took one recent publication on it, but that concept has been there for quite some time. That concludes the SEE. And if we come to enterprise risk management, which we referred to earlier, now we're talking the head office, which also includes, of course, the SEE. There are aspects, and this comment should have come early on so that it incorporates the SEE as well. There are aspects where there's been progress. Some of the recommendations we make have been taken into implementation. And one of them is that when you develop your strategic risk profile, you've got to do it via a workshop as opposed to one-on-ones. The significance of that is that then you have these role players, your senior executives, under one roof, not only identifying those risks and opportunities, but challenging one another so that we have an enriched risks and opportunities conversation. This is in place effective October 2022, and it was, of course, informing the risk outlook for the financial year 2024. The ranking of risks and the consolidation thereof. At some point, you would have strategic risks inherently ranked low, even lower when we talk residually. We had a conversation with management. At some point, they have come to realize if it's strategic, it cannot inherently be low. Similarly, we had a situation where there was a myriad of risks referred to as strategic. Whilst there is no scientific measure, but the further you go beyond 10, and that is best practice, the further you go beyond 10, either the less strategic those risks are, or there's an opportunity for consolidating those risks so that you have fewer elephants than a myriad of whatever is non-elephant. The department is more realistic insofar as the strategic risks and opportunities outlook is concerned. We believe that's a milestone. Environmental scanning by the enterprise risk management function that has started, Chair. Sure, there's some distance to go. It has started. We believe that is the other milestone. It's part of best practice that the annual strategic risk workshop has to be informed by environmental scanning. And as ERM, we cannot rely on what the first line of defense, what management is doing in terms of that environmental scanning. And if we do it, it contributes towards the ERM function, deeper understanding the intricacies of the organization. It is already beginning to happen, Chair. Combined assurance framework or model that has been approved, and it is being socialized, and it's led by enterprise risk management. ERM maturity assessment using the National Treasury model or framework, that has been done. Again, it's a milestone. With these milestones in place, what more can be done, which we believe could further strengthen the risk culture, the risk maturity within the department? One of those is project risk profiling. The AG talks about ICT-related contracts. Does the department have as a starting point, as a point of departure, something that says we do risk profiling of projects, say with a value of this much or above, or projects that have a particular uniqueness or peculiarity? As an example, that could be projects that talk to a new way of doing things. We've never done this as a department, as an organization, and therefore we've got to do a risk profiling upfront and track the mitigating actions as the project progresses. It's an area that needs to be looked into, Chair. Provincial risk committees, risk management committees. Those committees, are they convening regularly? And those committees, are they looking sufficiently at the risks of the province? For instance, which talks to the next point, there are situations where you find a province which, with risks at times going beyond 100, it cannot be, Chair, and that's our humble view. The provincial leader of the department from his seat, he has to be able to say, these are the elephant risks in this province. Much as when you move to the accounting officer's chair, it's got to be these elephants. It can't be so many of them, a community of risks. That becomes difficult to manage. So much as at a strategic level, the consolidation has already begun happening, reducing that number, the same needs to happen at provincial level. Sense checking of the strategic risks, and this is not exhaustive. We've given 3 avenues for doing that sense checking. When we look at the strategic objectives of the organization, do the risks and opportunities talk to all of them? Perhaps the organization has one particular strategic objective which carries more weight than the others. Does the risk profile talk to that as well? The department has got a few programs. Does the risk profile talk to each of those programs? If it doesn't, then we need to relook at the risk profile. Phases of the strategic management process. How many of these risks and opportunities talk to the strategy formulation, strategic planning? How many of them talks to implementation? And how many of them talks to the monitoring and reporting of the strategic management process? And I know that process, some break it down to 4, but broadly it is those phases. How does the risk profile map to those? And if there's a phase which does not have risks showing up, then we need to go back again. It's part of the considerations which the department perhaps needs to consider, and those conversations have commenced between the audit committee and the department. And fortunately, in the context of the department, the chairperson of the National Risk Management Committee is an external member, Jane Masite. She sits in the audit committee, which means there's an opportunity for the audit committee to get first-hand impression of how the department looks from a risk management point of view. That cross-pollination is there. Now let's look at the internal audit function, which
sorry, sir. I will
yes.
I will request you without dislodging you.
Yes.
In terms of pace, because we are still going to allow members to ask questions. I don't know how far you
another 5 minutes I should be done, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thanks. So as far as the internal audit function is concerned, which is a key role player as far as the combined assurance model is concerned, the capacitation of the function, and that has come up from the external quality assurance review. That is an area of concern for the audit committee. Vacancies, currently there are 6 in a team of, I think, 14. That's a little too high as a proportion. We believe it is an area of concern. The professional certification of the internal audit function, it's another area that needs to be looked into, we believe. Beyond what I would call traditional audits, we need to look at areas such as performance audits. We need to look at ICT audits. We need to have the data analytics. That seems to be a challenge within the internal audit function. Other considerations perhaps linked to that is the turnaround time for internal audit projects. Those value-add non-routine audits, which I referred to earlier on. Now, with the resource constraints, how about doing a cross-pollination of scarce skills between the department and the funds? The proportion of assurance work versus consulting work, which the professional body, the Internal Institute of Internal Auditors preaches, how far are we on that? Stakeholder centricity versus the value proposition of the internal audit function. In terms of the findings, we thought, let's just break them into time horizon. The AG financial year 2023 findings. And as at the time we got the management report, 37% of those findings, there was no agreement between management and the AG. Sorry, there was no date. And 6 of those 19, 6 within the 37%, there was disagreement. With that kind of disagreement not resolved proactively, then it impacts on the action plan that needs to be developed thereafter. As at that time, 42% of the findings should have been closed by now. So if we look at the target dates given in the management report, then it means 21 findings should have been closed by now. Is that the case? We do not believe so. We're making a suggestion, Chair. In that management report, it should be an ExCo member's name that appears. That might sound a little too soft, but it does nudge the organization into a higher implementation rate, we believe. And if we look at the per program breakdown of those, you can see 27 of those, it's corporate services. And of those 27, 22 talk to the office of the CIO. And that's a problem child as far as the department is concerned. ICT and the Auditor-General made reference to that. Fortunately, the internal audit function, or commendably, they have raised concerns as far as the action plans are concerned. In terms of the time horizon, if we look at the problem child, the target dates given at the management report stage, if we proceed from that premise, 41% of those should have been closed by now. Is it? I don't think so. We don't think so. And there's no date again for 8 of them. And that 8 is about 36%. We believe that is a concern. The extent of repeat findings, Chair, corporate services seem to have more, and again, the office of the CIO is the problem child. 12 of the findings have been raised once. 9 of the findings have been raised 3 times already. So that's the problem child, which we need to work together, the audit committee and management, in trying to sort out. The position of the CIO has been vacant for quite some time. The strategy of ICT has not been approved in over 18 months at the very least. And part of what we're seeking to do is perhaps to have an audience with the advisory board on ICT as the audit committee. We hope that will contribute. towards moving forward. These, let me not get into the reconfiguration of the department, which we are looking forward to, consequence management, which the AG has referred to, but perhaps what's worth mentioning, incident management reporting as a tool for prevention, as a tool for strengthening the learning organization posture of the department. And that's our story, Chair. And we understand we will wrinkle as we try to navigate across these challenges. But in the interest of the greater good, which is beautifying the life journey of ordinary women and men in the street, we do need to sustain those wrinkles as the audit committee, as management, as this portfolio committee, as government at large. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your presentation. Honorable members, there are the two presentations, one by the Auditor-General and two by, I would appreciate if Mr. Sekutali, can you please mute? Yes.
Michael Bagram, Madam Chair.
Okay, that's number one, Mr. Baker.
Mkhonto, Chair.
Can I see it? It's Mr. Bagram, it's Honorable Bagram, Honorable Mkhonto, Honorable Mugabe. In that order.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Come again?
May I go ahead, Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for the two presentations. I really appreciate it. If I could handle first the Auditor-General and the report from the Auditor-General, and then I'll ask the general questions of the Internal Audit Committee thereafter. Just from the Auditor-General, about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we had a presentation from the AG explaining how they're going to ratchet up their consequence management for people that don't take instructions and don't do it properly, to the extent that they have the law on their side now. You know that the regulations have been passed by Parliament, and that the law is very much on the side of the AG to be able to take that consequence management themselves. Well, we've just had a report today where they said that people have not improved or corrected for the last 3 years. I go so bold as to say, from what I understand, is this Department of Employment and Labour hasn't corrected themselves for the last 9 years. I've been watching it for 9 years, but let's take the last 3 years where there's been no improvement whatsoever. That's the first step. And what is the AG going to do about that? The second thing is that we have the two entities, the two major entities, that's the Compensation Fund and the UIF, didn't even bother to send in a report. Flawed as it might have been, they didn't send it in at all. And so they couldn't even do an audit. What are they going to do about that? It's no good saying that, as the Minister has said, that they're going to present it in January 24. We've missed this whole year now, and nothing has come to the fore. So that's the next thing. I do need to then also say that the AG has very carefully outlined the last report we had last year at this time. They very carefully outlined what had to be done by the entities that had failed. I think the only shining example was the CCMA. They're the only ones that managed to do it properly, but the others somehow just didn't take instructions. I'll get onto those questions when I ask the internal audit, because they're now promising all sorts of things, and yet it was never done in the past. So I don't understand that at all. When you look at the section on material irregularities, I don't have page 12. Again, they're saying there's been delays, and the consequence management has not happened, and they keep telling us exactly the same. If you look at last year's report, Madam Chair, exactly the same wording was used with regard to the CF, exactly the same wording, and I can't understand it at all. And this committee is being treated by the department like mushrooms. We have a problem over here in that the Department of Employment and Labour itself has failed. If you look at page 15 of the report, there's crosses right through. And SEE, Supported Employment Enterprises, again, they failed everything at page 15. And there's somehow, that's what happened last time. And if you look at page 17, the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, this is a department that can't afford to employ more inspectors. They can't afford to give inspectors cars. They can't afford to give them computers. And yet we've wasted, through the Department of Labour itself, over 100 million rand on wasteful expenditure. I know it's easy to spend because it's not their money, it's taxpayer. We don't really care about the taxpayer at all. And it looks like this department doesn't seem to care. But the AG has now pointed it out that we're talking about 108 million rand just from the Department of Employment and Labour, never mind their entities. I know it's a little bit of money, it's not much, it's only 100 million, but why didn't the AG actually do something about it? It's no good telling us they've just come to conclusions. And if you look at page 20 and onwards where they got the conclusions, again, the AG is somehow saying that everything remains stagnant. That's their words. The portfolio has remained stagnant. And quite frankly, I think the AG needs to step in and strong arm this for a change. We were all excited as a committee when the AG got stronger powers, when our parliament said to the AG, you've now got stronger powers, use those powers. They've had over a year or 2 years now from those strengthened powers and no one's used it. Quickly, I know we're short of time, Madam Chair, but quickly to have a look at the internal audit. Again, we've got all sorts of fancy plans and ideas and it's promises, and we got those plans and promises last year. And I can assume that in the new dispensation, when the new parliament comes in middle 2024, we're going to get the same, they clear the decks completely, nothing new, and they start off again, and there'll be the same plans and ideas. I would expect the internal audit to have a very strong connection to the AG, and for the internal auditors to say, tell us about the meetings they've had with the AG, tell us about the instructions they got from the AG before they did the internal audit. It doesn't help afterwards to say, okay, we've noticed that, now we've got plans for the future. They're not telling us about what they did in the past. So thank you, Madam Chair, for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Honorable Nkonto.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Chair. Good morning to you, Chair, honorable members, the Minister, the Deputy Minister, and the colleagues from the Office of the AG and the Chairperson of the Audit Committee with his team. Chair, is very disturbing to realize today that the department we inherited from the 5th Parliament being in ICU, it collapsed under our watch. That is the reality of the matter, Chair. In summary, Chair, we have failed the people that we are representing in Parliament to do oversight to this department so that it is able to improve its systems and be able to serve the people of South Africa. Chair, I want to check. I'm going to do comments and questions. And my questions, I believe the entities that the AG has been talking about and the department are represented here. So they are going to choose as to which questions one is going to, which entity is going to answer. Chair, I want to know what is it that the office of the AG is prepared to go and present to SCOPA, specifically in as far as this department is concerned? What would be their recommendations? What is the future plan? Because, Chair, as Honorable Bagram has said, seemingly the department can't correct itself. It needs external intervention for it to be corrected. So what are the plans that the AG is having? Because they can't say, no, we told them this. Seemingly, it has been years now. The department can't self-correct. Instead of self-correcting, it is going from bad to worse every day. We are having the SEE, Chair, having moved from qualified to adverse. We are told they can't produce financial statements within legislative times. Are they not joining the UIF and the compensation fund slowly but surely? That is why, Chair, I'm saying the department is just collapsing under our watch. But then, since last year's presentation, last financial year presentation, has there been any skills audit that has been done in the SEEs? And if there are any skills audit done, then what corrective measures have been implemented? Are we having the adequately and relevantly skilled people in the SEEs? Then the NEDLEC, Chair, we have learned that they have a partners. When you look to slide 9 that talks with the AGSA system that has a great potential, is it possible that NEDLEC can have unemployed graduates as part of their social partners, for them to be able to do some recommendations to NEDLEC as to how can the department be able to intervene in the high unemployment rate of the unemployed graduates? Chair, maybe we have to be told at slide 12 with the ICT systems that are underutilized as to how much is lost per annum, and why are those systems not dealt away? Why are they not discarded? Why are they not dealt away with? Is it issues of contracts or what? Because I am sure they are underutilized, but you will find that the department is paying a lot of money when it comes to that. It's very painful, Chair, to learn that the inventory of the SEE is not up to standard. We are fighting for them to be supported. We are fighting for them to develop, to grow. But if they can't manage the little that they have now, so Chair, what about the greater and better things that we are fighting them for them to get. It means there will be chaos. The audit committee chair talked about skills and competency. I just want to know, Chair, how frequently do the audit committee meet with the internal audit committee unit and the AG in as far as the management letters are concerned? How frequently do they meet? Because coming here and say we agree with the AG in this and that and that and that and that, but to me, some of the things should have been corrected even before they come here, if they do have platforms where they are able to meet and be able to correct some of these things. And the chairperson said maybe with the integrity reporting, there is fraud. I mean, the results are showing us, Chair, that there are activities that are not okay, that are happening, and fraud can be part of that. We can't have a department and entities as big as these controlling billions and hundreds of millions of rands, but they can't report, they can't produce statements, because the bigger the department, my understanding is that they are able to recruit highly competent people, highly skilled people to do the job. Why is that not done? To me, it's because there are these shenanigans that are going on, and we don't understand exactly what is going on. Our biggest challenge, Chair, maybe is human capital. And if it is not human capital, and the fact that we are not given reports of the skills audit, even if we request for them, that there must be skills audit that is done, there are no reports that are coming our way. And then, but then the biggest problem that we are having here is the human capital. So we need, Chair, to be told as to exactly how is that going to be corrected. Because to me, this department has a potential, has a financial muscle to recruit any person, any skilled person in the country to do the job that all these people that are in the department are failing to do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mkondo. Honorable Mugabe.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning to you, the honorable members, the Auditor-General's office, as well as the Audit Committee Chair and members that are present. Chairperson, it's very disturbing that we sit here again discussing the Auditor General's report of a similar nature as the previous year. I recall that we posed a question to the Office of the Auditor General whether do they have an in-year audit with the department, and we posed the question as well to the department when we were oversighting the department on its own. And the response on both of them was that, one, the department doesn't have sufficient funds because any audit that is being done, they have to then pay. Now, based on what is being presented to us, the challenge that we are currently facing, although is not set, explicitly here. It's the issue of capacity and competency of the individuals that are given the responsibility to run this department. It's not going to be an issue that we leave it unattended. The matter requires an urgent intervention so as to rescue the department from its downward trends. The issue of the audit action plans that was raised even in the previous financial years is still recurring even today, and it's not even implemented. If therefore then the meetings that are in here, deliberations in terms of the functionality and the performance of the department are being engaged on, assessed the progress on the issue of meeting the dashboard as it was presented by the Auditor-General has not been realized. Therefore, the issue is not about whether do we have enough people to be in the department, but the issue is the competencies. Do they have the competency to run the department? That's the crux of the matter in this whole issue. And unfortunately, it affects the issue of service delivery. I therefore, a chairperson would propose that you find space with the office of the chair of chairs so that we are able to call on the department and its entities separately and individually to account on the outcomes of what is being presented by the Office of the Auditor-General. Lastly, Chair, one must congratulate CCMA for sterling work, the commitment, and the ability to manage and run this entity. Well done to the director and his team. We are really proud of what they are doing. If there is an entity that is able to perform at the level at which they are, what stops the others from doing the same? Somehow we must get to the bottom, to the root cause of why these other entities and the department are unable to perform. I'm still trying to find a reasonable explanation whether even the governance structures, do they have the necessary capacity to oversight what is happening in this department? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, honorable members, for your questions and comments. First, let me clarify one thing for the benefit of everybody. People that, for now, people that are going to respond to our questions, it is the Office of the Auditor-General, because this meeting is between us and them. Now, that some of the management of the entities and the department are here is to listen. They're just to observe. We will have an opportunity when they are coming to make a presentation to us. Ask them questions in line with what was then presented by the Office of the Auditor-General. And the response of the Office of the Auditor-General and that of the internal auditor. So we must not have those expectations that today, because they're in this meeting, they are going to respond today. They're not going to respond today. They will then they are going to respond when we are calling them to come and present. So I just wanted members to just be clear on that. And the Office of the Auditor-General, obviously in them and the internal audit chair, in then listening to our line of questions and comments, they will then maybe have picked up questions that I directed to them. But for entities, not today. They will then have to, so it then means we will have to, when they come, structure our questions in line with what is in the presentation and what and how the auditors have then responded. So I'm raising this upfront so that we don't have expectations that because they're here today they're going to respond. No. Office of the Auditor-General, any response and clarities that you may give us?
Thank you so much, and thank you members for the questions. I will start with the Honourable Member Bagram. In terms of our extended powers. So when we looked at the Department of Employment and Labour, one of the concerns, as we had highlighted, was on the ICT contracts. And therefore, that for us, because we had raised it, we then took it through our expanded powers, which is the material irregularity. And we identified that some of the unused licenses that were there, some of the losses that were there, met the definition of what we called the material irregularity. So we've notified the accounting officer of the material irregularity. We are waiting for the response, but seeming that the process now is within that expanded mandate, is that we will then take it through the whole process where if we get a response from the accounting officer, we assess whether that response, whether he's going to take appropriate actions. If we don't get a response, or we conclude that appropriate action is not taken, we then expand that through the PAA Act, where we will either now give a recommendation to the accounting officer or take remedial binding action, which now becomes a lawful process where we are actually demanding that action is being taken. And if you recall, our material irregularity is that once if action is still not taken that is appropriate after those processes, then we will then issue the certificate of debt. So in terms of our expanded mandate for the Department of Labour, we've definitely enforced the PAA Act in terms of that, especially on the ICT contracts, which is the major component that's causing the irregularities and the fruitless and wasteful expenditure in the department. In terms of the SCE, just on the material irregularity, the process does not end. So even now, after the audit, we are still at liberty where we assess all the findings that we've raised and we take them through the definition. If they meet the definition, we will then issue additional material irregularities. But I think for the department, we've issued the one on the ICT contract. In terms of the SCE, there definitely there needs to be attention. But I think in key, if you look at the what we advocate for is that there needs to be an embedded culture where if someone is not following controls, there needs to be consequences. And I think that's where that's where our recommendations are coming from, because you can have a well-crafted action plan, but if it's not being implemented and the person that's responsible for implementing it is not getting the consequences that they should be getting, it does it does make the process very ineffective. And I think that's why we say that if somebody has transgressed and now it becomes irregular expenditure, it becomes fruitless and wasteful, can the department make sure that they do that investigation speedily? And that's why we also recommend to the portfolio committee that can you also monitor the progress that is made for the investigations, so that there is accountability at all parties, whether it's from the accounting officer to the to the portfolio committee or to the minister, or if it's from the CFO or the directorate to the DG or to the accounting authority. I think it's key to make sure that the culture within the department and the SCE is improved, so that people, when they come to work, they know that they need to implement those controls, they need to follow the controls. In terms of what we should take to SCOPA, I think I've dealt with what we have in terms of the material irregularity. It is also important that the portfolio committee assists us as well in following up on the progress made by the accounting officers on resolving these material irregularities. What is important when we do put through a material irregularity is two things: that the internal control that broke down must be fixed. So if you look at some of the areas, the internal control will accommodate all other processes that are within the department. So if you make sure that if you are resolving our material irregularity and you make sure that when an ICT project is entered into, there's proper monitoring, that will resolve any other ICT project that the department will enter into. So it's not just focusing on the material irregularity, but the control process in totality. We also have that the second part where we say there must be consequences when you're taking action in the material irregularity, and that enforces consequence management within the entities and the department. So if the portfolio committee could also help us monitor that, because I think monitoring the appropriate action taken by the accounting officer will also enforce some of the improvements in the internal control environment and the consequence management. The last question was in terms of the last one that I thought it's important I respond to as well, is the interim audits. Yes, we do the interim audit. We do something called the status of records review as well, and we give the findings. But I think it goes back to the implementation of the recommendations, the implementation of the action plans, where we are seeing that they're not necessarily being adhered to, and therefore we're getting the repeat findings. Chair, I think that was all from my side in terms of the questions that were raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The chair of the Internal Audit Committee.
Thanks very much, Chair. In addition to what has been said, perhaps what I can mention, the statement that the department is collapsing, I think that's overly strong for the condition, the situation that we're seeing. Collapsing is overly strong. Yes, in terms of the programs, ICT, the Office of the CIO, that is a problem child, particularly if you take into account that it services the funds as well. That is a problem child. Even in terms of the findings, the number of repeat findings are actually concentrated there. And therefore, despite the prominence of ICT in any organization, when that is a problem child, collapse is a strong word. The key issue is the stagnancy of the overall opinion from the AG. Yes, as far as SEE is concerned, yeah, that's another problem child we have as a department. And the point about again, action plans being linked to skills and competencies. Yes, we have considered on that. But perhaps, as the AG made reference to culture,
I don't know whether it's my system or he's frozen. Can I get an indication? Am I audible?
You are, Chair. I think it's from his side.
Oh, okay. No, it's fine. I think Mr. Sakaza, are you able to call him or Mr. Wababa to just check what is the problem?
Yes, Chair. I'm trying to call him.
No, I'm back. I don't know what happened. So I was saying, Chair, the trend with organizations is that before you have a risk materializing, there's usually near misses, small incidents that happen, and we ignore them. And hence, the governance initiative of incident management reporting becomes important. It contributes towards encouraging the broader organization to bring these incidents to light so that we can respond to them as the organization. It also enables the organization to track any lessons learned that need to be taken into consideration. So for me, yes, skills and competencies, but organizational culture, particularly the coordination of interdependencies, and linked to that, incident management reporting. How frequently we meet with the audit committee and the AG, we are a phone call away from one another. And by the way, the chief audit executive functionally reports to the audit committee. So those interactions are there. That would be my story, Chair. Thanks.
No, thank you very much, Office of the AG, and that of the internal audit of the department. I think now we are, having received your presentations, we will be more empowered to prepare for our next interaction, because from now, after this session, we are then going to meet with the department, and we will then, in terms of what they will then be presenting to us, we'll then be able to make that comparison. But what I think is very much disturbing, just my comment, general comment, is one unit that seems to be a challenge, and maybe the department, and in fact the executive authority and the accounting officer will have to be open and honest to us. Exactly what is this elephant called the ICT in the Department of Employment and Labor? And it's just unfortunate. I'm just reminding now, just unfortunate that we didn't insist that the CBOs, chief directors, be also part of this meeting. When we are then inviting entities, we'll then have to. So I think when we meet again, because we can't be having a same thing, same comment. In the last presentation, in the previous presentation, the challenge of this department is ICT. It's quite disturbing that you have a system that is paid for, but it's not functioning in a manner that is then supposed to be. Something is wrong, because at the end, honorable members, we do conduct oversight. We can't be physically seated in a department. We can't. We rely, one, we do our oversight, but two, we rely on the entities and the department itself to be honest and open to us. We've got the big elephant in the room, UIF and compensation fund. So it really touches into the capacity and the ability, in particular, of the administration leading the organization. So that's where the disturbance is. It is the issue of the ICT. I think we must call it by its name. It's the issue of the ICT, UIF, and compensation funds, which we have been talking about since the start of this administration. Having said that, thank you very much. We will then be preparing for our next meetings. We'll circulate a notice of the first meeting, preparing for the BRRR. Obviously, it's going to be the department and entities will then follow after that. You will then be invited to come and listen to their response compared to what they have told you. If you do have time, the Office of the Auditor-General and that's of the internal audit. But thank you very much, members, for availing yourselves, and thank you very much for the presentations from the Auditor-General that have really been open and gave us exactly what then is the situation in terms of what is happening in the department. Having said that, our meeting is still adjourned until we meet next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.